Good morning, or good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another coffee hour. Let's go ahead and just get right into it. All right, guys, we got a lot to cover. All right, we're going to be talking a little bit about Coinbase. We're going to be talking about that Moody's downgrade. We'll do a portfolio update like we always do. And then we'll be talking about some really big news about Nvidia that I think is going to be an absolute game changer for this company because it has to do with NVIDIA's ecosystem, right? Like it has to do with NVIDIA's ecosystem. He just got back from this Computex big conference, and there was so much new tech. I haven't gotten around to actually watching that keynote, so I'm looking at the highlights. But there is some new tech that came out that's going to be huge, right? Because usually companies, especially hardware companies, they live in their own like tiny little like ecosystems, so like Supermicro, it's mostly like Supermicro stuff, right? They might have like an Intel chip. Well, they would have an Intel chip, and then, you could mix and match. You could throw in like an AMD graphics card or something else. But more to the point, especially with this, especially with Nvidia tech, I think it's going to be a huge change in the current environment because there was a bear case against Nvidia, which I'm going to get into. All right, I'm going to just get into that in a little bit. But yes, there was this big bear case, which I'll explain in just a minute. All right, let me just get into this, guys. All right, because I'm just talking about the news, like right here. I should just stream. Okay, so in the chat we have Alex. Hey, appreciate that, man. Yeah, hit that like button, guys. All right. Senpai says strategies over spreadsheets every single day of the week, sir. All right, make sure you guys take profits, not screenshots. All right, we need more profit taking and less screenshots. Okay, so this is the portfolio as it stands today, guys. And you already know this doesn't really change, even though it should update, but it doesn't change. This is the portfolio value. I'm just down $12,000, which is a huge welcome sign. Again, we are trending up and to the right, recovering. This portfolio, for any of the new people, saw a decline as large as $70,000. That was absolutely terrifying. That was absolutely scary. But it looks like, again, we're trending in the right direction. We're recovering, but there's still a lot of uncertainty and risk. All right. You have to keep this in the top of your head. Tariffs are still a thing. Okay. Tariffs are still a thing. The possibility of a recession is still a thing. So you still have to practice, good portfolio diversification. If anything, maybe de-risk yourself. Maybe if you're taking on excessive margin like I am, $99,000 worth of margin, maybe it might be time for other people to kind of, de-risk a bit. Again, not financial advice, but I'm just kind of parroting what a lot of the other pundits are saying. All right. Ryan, hey, welcome. Does anyone know when the new Round Hill funds will be released? So there is no new release date. That document that I did a video on was updated May 16th or effective May 16th. So I guess what happens after that is there is a process in order to get an ETF launched. There's a slew of processes that have to happen. And usually it takes about, I saw estimates of like 2 months, right? Estimates of like a month to 2 months, couple weeks, whatever. But hopefully we'll hear something from Round Hill. Maybe they'll make some type of announcement, some type of press release, because I think a lot of people really liked their Round Hill weeklies. So hopefully we'll hear something. That should be, that a fire under their butt to actually move, and release some of their other funds. Because again, you have things like Hood, Robinhood, that stock is really like popular right now. You also have stocks like, MSTR. Everyone wants an MSTR leveraged income fund, right? That is not, MISTY, right? MST, again, had a lot of people interested in that. So I really think whenever this new one comes out from Round Hill, it'll be really cool. Nunya. Oh, like Nunya Business? Nice. MST declaration date is on the 20th. It is, well, I'm here in Thailand, so it's already the 20th, but it'll be tomorrow Eastern Standard Time, your guys' time. So they are declaring stuff. All right. So I'm actually anticipating, I'm actually looking forward to that because I want to see how they did. Again, MST, they're using a 1.5 to 2x levered position for MSTR with income. So that one's very interesting. There is a member in the community. He has like 80,000 shares, I think is what he said. Like that is total degen. That is total degen to the max. But hey, if it works out, excellent. Again, you have to be really bullish on not MSTR by any means, but yeah, they'd be really bullish on Bitcoin, right? But, you know, MSTR does have a lot of single stock risk associated with it. You know, they still, and we're going to get into that here in just a minute, but there is still, you know, some stuff that's hanging over their heads, and I haven't seen any resolutions to. So that's just adding to the risk case for anything related to MSTR. So if you're investing in MST, if you're investing in, you know, MSTY, you know, Misty from YieldMax, I mean, these are still real risks to the underlier. So we'll see. All right. Sauce Maker, part of the old guard. Hey, welcome back. Spreadsheets don't lie. You always make money. Your formulas need fixing. Absolutely. The bank account is the actual place where the store of value is. All right, guys, let's get more into it. All right. So again, just a quick portfolio update. And again, at the very end, I will cover all of these more in depth. I'll actually show you inside the portfolios. All right. Okay. So we're going to watch a quick video. I don't know if we'll watch the whole thing, but there was some information that came out on Moody's. We're going to be talking about Moody's. All right. FundStrat's Tom Lee, who's a popular guest. I like to follow him for anyone who's new. I do like to follow Tom Lee because, you know, he just has really good insights. Again, he's a manager, a fund manager of Granny, GRNY, who surprisingly is you know, has some connection to the ETF manager title of, you know, a lot of these popular funds out here. So I always like to listen to what he has to say. He's described as a perma bull. You know, he's just always bullish. But you know, he had some really good thoughts on this stuff. So let's take a look and listen in.
Today's pullback comes after a standout week for the bulls, of course, which saw the S&P jump more than 5%. Joining us here at Post 9 is Tom Lee, FundStrat Global Advisors, Head of Research, and FundStrat Capital CIO. Happy Monday, Tom. Good to see you in.
Yeah, happy Monday.
You really haven't been unnerved by anything since Friday night, have you?
No. I don't know if there's much signal in the downgrade Friday, because I think the first AAA downgrade was signal from 2011. I don't think Moody's had any information that we didn't have on Friday afternoon. So I think markets should realize the bond market largely priced in the fact that the U.S. is really not AAA anymore. So I'd be viewing this as a buying opportunity.
That said, you're not.
So boom, back in 2011, you know, or even, I think it was even more recent than that. You know, the other two big ones out there, S&P Global, and I forget the other one. I always forget the other one. But they both said, hey, you know, we're downgrading the U.S. Credit rating, and markets dumped, and it was just whatever. So then when Moody's came out like years later and they say, yes, we're also downgrading. I mean, it's like they're lagging at this point. They're a lagging indicator. They're already too late to the game. Investors have all this already priced into the market, so they don't really care. Or, you know, and we saw that today. There was a huge sell-off in the morning. Both Europe and the Asian markets were in the red, and today S&P 500 ended in the green. So, you know, I think that's a telltale sign that investor sentiment just doesn't really care. And again, this whole market is very irrational right now. We're all going off good news, like just good news after good news after good news. You know, fundamentals out the window. But let's listen more.
You're not discounting the notion that the vigilantes have been reawakened a bit?
You know, I think everyone should be aware the U.S. has an unsustainable path for debt, but I think the real signal will be when an auction fails. That happened a few years ago, and then we realized that was the time to really pay attention to the fact that we have debt sustainability issues. But I think a downgrade itself, I don't think it makes this much signal.
So we reclaim the 200-day. Is that a clear path to a new high, as some of the trading desks suggested this morning?
Yeah, in fact, I think today will be an interesting test. I'm assuming today's pullback's going to be really shallow, might even close positive.
I mean, he was right on the money. The pullback was shallow, and we ended in the green. I mean, his calls are usually pretty good, and I'm not saying like take him at, you know, like copy his calls or whatever. But it's just, you know, he's just, I don't know, he's always right when it comes to these types of calls. So
and guys who actually got it wrong and rage sold, to your point,
are underinvested.
How are you evaluating potential changes in tax policy? Obviously, the market has been very reactive to any headlines on tariffs. What about this one?
Yeah, in fact, I think as we start to think about 2026, and it makes sense because we're in the mid-year, there's not only tax policy that can be a tailwind, it looks like it's going to be, but it's deregulation.
Sure.
I mean, several published pieces show that regulatory cost for U.S. companies is over $2 trillion, maybe as much as $3 trillion. It's a bigger deal than the tax cuts itself.
Yeah, obviously we've been waiting for some time.
Yeah, so just real quick, you know, again, the current administration is working on deregulating a couple different spaces. One of them is artificial intelligence, and the other is crypto. So those two are two big deregulation points. But also, you know, Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury, he was talking, I think it was with CNBC or someone else, and he had mentioned that there's all these new private credit funds coming out, right? Private credit is all the rage right now. And basically that's telling him as Secretary of the Treasury that there's too much regulation in banking. So he made it, just as a small blurb, as a small point that, probably deregulation of the banks is going to come probably sooner rather than later, because there's if private credit funds are popping up, that means there's investors creating these private funds so businesses can go to them for money, right? Instead of going to banks. So again, that's higher regulation. So to make it easier for these smaller businesses to get, money to build their businesses, they're going to just probably look at deregulating some way, shape, or form banks. But anyways, we'll move on from this segment and just move over to Secretary of Treasury. Speaking of, Scott Bessent dismissing debt and tariff concerns while blaming Biden. All right. Again, we know that politics and finance, they intersect. All right. But let's try to just look at it factually and, objectively, and not include our feelings about politics in this. All right. So it's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent pushed back against concerns about rising U.S. debt and the inflationary impacts of tariffs, asserting that the Trump administration remains focused on cutting federal spending and boosting economic growth. Right, that's the whole point: bringing jobs back, bringing higher precision manufacturing back to the United States, and then creating tariffs to basically help with this whole tax bill that's coming out. And then basically Scott Bessent was saying that Moody's is a lagging indicator. That's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. He said they're kind of already late to the game, and the whole Moody's thing, again, like this, the United States was already downgraded a very long time ago. So for Moody's to finally come out and say, yeah, they're downgraded, it's like, okay, so what? This has already been priced in. Everyone already knew this. The data never really changed. We know that the United States is in way over their heads with debt. We keep spending, printing. Like, this is not new, right? This is not new news. We already know this. So Citizen of the Year, hey, welcome back. How will this impact UNH's legacy? They do have a very good legacy. I don't know. Very interesting. What did Biden do? Biden basically, and again, not to bring politics into this, every administration is it doesn't matter who is in power. Every administration is at fault for increasing, federal spend, basically bloating out the military, bloating out social programs. Pick your poison, right? It's just one of those two. They print a bunch of money. You still had the after effects or aftershocks of the Rona 19, where the United States printed probably the most money it's ever printed in its 250 plus year history, right? So again, all of that is leading us to where we are today, right? Too much money being spent. And, that's with the whole creation of Doge. That was with all these cuts. That's with the Department of Defense is cutting back on a lot of their contracts, cutting back on a lot of their spend, reallocating money into more priority areas and sectors. But again, I mean, even so, you still have, and I just covered this, you still have, the Trump administration talking about building this golden dome and bloating out the military with $1 trillion when we're in no active war. So again, it's every administration, they spend money like crazy, but they cut in other areas. And I think that's what the focus is right now, is cutting in all these areas that just, there's no net positive to it, or there's no gain for America as it is. But anyways, moving on. Hope I did answer that extremely well as best I can. So Scott Bessent was mentioning the Federal Reserve is taking a wait and see approach. Addressing concerns raised by the Federal Reserve, Bessent clarified that the central bank has not made a definitive link between tariffs and inflation. And we know this too, because Jerome Powell had already spoken several times and talked about how inflation or tariffs, they're transitory, right? He used that word, they're transitory. It's transitory inflation. It's not going to be here to stay. And then little by little, he started shifting his tone a bit. So now there may be direct relation between tariffs and inflation. Again, pick your poison, pick your camp, whether you believe them or not. Right now, they've been taking, and I think this is probably the best approach, they've been taking a wait and see. Again, we're still early in the year. We don't know how the tariffs have actually affected not only companies, because we had solid earnings. We had a great quarter for earnings. But I think quarter two is really going to be a telltale sign, as well as the economic data coming from that, because you can actually see what damage the tariffs, if any, had actually done or caused to the American economy. So we'll see. again, what's happening. And that's kind of what the Federal Reserve is taking as a wait and see approach. But not only that, there was this talk of earlier in the year, hey, we're going to get, probably 3 rate cuts. And then we're getting a rate cut in May. And then that died down, right? And now it's turning into, well, maybe we'll just get 1 rate cut for the year because the economy is still doing so well. Everything is doing so well by all metrics. Inflation's coming down, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. All right. He also explained that other countries might face a unilateral tariff rates if they fail to engage in fair negotiations or dialogue. Right. This means that if they're not negotiating in good faith, they're going to get a letter saying that this is the rate. So I would expect everyone to come in and negotiate in good faith, Bessent said, referring to the tariff rates announced by the White House on April 2nd. So this is funny. I mean, just as a country, you have these smaller countries that got their tariffs. And if they don't come to the table or try to negotiate in good faith, they're probably going to get stuck with whatever higher rate, or maybe they'll just get stuck with a flat 10%, right? Just a flat 10% across the board. Who knows? But again, that tariff risk is still there. All right, it hasn't gone away. It's only been paused for 90 days. So maybe this might be that 90-day cool-off period where people should think about de-risking their portfolios, maybe being a little defensive, holding a little more cash, maybe not being in such a crazy euphoric buying mode. Nunya says Biden came in like a wrecking ball. Yep. So did that other. I forget her name, but anyways, the singer, the whole Wrecking Ball song. Danos, hey, welcome back, man. I haven't seen you in a bit. Danos is, been around for a bit. So I appreciate you joining the channel and joining the stream, bro. All right, let's move it on. NVIDIA, this is the big news. All right, this is the big news of this segment. Because, again, I don't think people are understanding how big of a deal this really is. So NVIDIA NVLink Fusion unveiling is the most impactful Computex announcement from Bank of America, right? Or according to Bank of America. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang made several announcements at the 2025 Computex conference, including a Taiwan semiconductor project. However, it's the NVLink Fusion announcement that Bank of America said is likely to be the most important. To give you guys some quick context, all right, all the hyperscalers out there, Facebook, Amazon, Google, all right, maybe even Apple, all these guys were talking about building their own artificial intelligence chips, right? Their own chips for their own language learning models, their own AIs, right? They're going to squeeze NVIDIA out. They don't need NVIDIA, but again, you got to think NVIDIA sole focus is on this technology. And you're going to have a company like Google, Amazon and Microsoft try to build now their hardware, now they're doing hardware when they've primarily been software. So again, it's a wealthy life says you keep forgetting Tesla. And Tesla, yes, thank you. But Tesla uses NVIDIA chips, all right, just as a point of fact. So they were all talking about creating their own chips, right? Building their own chips, their own, I think they're called TPMs or something like that. But they all wanted to build their own stuff, right? They wanted to squeeze NVIDIA out. But NVIDIA came out with this new technology that's basically going to end all of that. All right, NVLink Fusion, described as a system that allows data centers to mix and match NVIDIA GPUs with third-party CPUs or their own AI accelerators. It essentially expands NVIDIA's total addressable market, right? It makes it available to everybody. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can mix and match in AMD with NVIDIA. That's a really big deal, right? And this is coming from Bank of America. With NVLink Fusion, NVIDIA is able to provide its proprietary interconnect fabric, the NVLink, and switch spectrum to cloud service providers for use as a chiplet in systems modified with third-party ASICs, right? ASICs is just a chip, right? It's just another chip. From partners Marvel, AI chip Astera, Synopsys, and Cadence. Interesting that not Broadcom. Or extend integration of NVIDIA GPUs with other ARM-based CPUs, Qualcomm, Fujitsu. NVIDIA made several other important announcements, including the expansion of its portfolio with a broad set of AI products across various industries, cloud enterprise, gaming robots, and more, all of which could be important in the multi-trillion-dollar AI factory. It is also significant to note that the rack-scale GB200 NVL72 Blackwell systems are now in full production, which is a big deal because that's going to be their newer systems, their more powerful systems. And lastly, the build-out of sovereign AI. This is a big one. As evidenced by the recent Middle East deals, should prove beneficial in the long term. So there's this talk now of sovereign AI, right? It's global. It's sovereign AI. NVIDIA is making its own deals with governments, its own deals with other countries. Like, that is a huge, huge deal. And again, this is a big freaking tailwind for NVIDIA. This is going to cause basically NVIDIA to be available everywhere. And when NVIDIA is available everywhere and they're able to ship out their chips and sell their products and services, what do you think that's going to do to the share price, right? And this is a long-term game. The whole AI thesis is going to last easily a decade. People are going to start building out more data centers. People are going to start building out more AI infrastructure. You have robotics, right? You have the Tesla Optimus bot that just came out. I mean, what do you think they're using for their chip, right? I'm just curious. I'm pretty sure if not, it's probably NVIDIA. And not only that, you still have the CUDA libraries for NVIDIA. That's a big deal, right? The CUDA libraries is basically this library of information that you can use to build your AI, right? It understands things like autonomous driving, right? They have a CUDA library for that. They have a CUDA library for robotics, for humanoid robots, for manufacturing. They have a CUDA library for a lot of things, including science and physics stuff. So it's really, really interesting. All right. So again, big tailwind for NVIDIA. I think this is really, really big news. And I think people are still not appreciating how important this technology really is. I talked about this after the GTC conference earlier in the year, and I talked about it in a video of why this is so important. And there was all this bear case, again, all this negativity around NVIDIA saying it's dead, it's cooked, it's the AI bubble popped, data center demand is going down, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But NVIDIA still keeps marching on and keeps innovating and keeps just killing it, just absolutely killing it. So I see that we have a lot of chat going on, so I'm just going to take a look at the chat. All right, so It's a Wealthy Life says Tesla is the hyperscaling king. You know what? I'm in agreement with you. They have their own data center, their own car manufacturer, their own battery plant. Like they manufacture a lot of their own stuff, and it's all here in America. So I mean, that's shout out to Tesla, right? Shout out to any Tesla holders. You guys, like, aside from Bitcoin volatility, Tesla is probably the volatility of Bitcoin at this point. It's just so crazy to see those drops and then those gains. Let's see, Ad Carry. I don't think I've seen you on the channel, so welcome. Do you think that if all of the shareholders of NVIDIA were all gamers, the stock wouldn't reach $100? No, definitely not. Hell no. I mean, gamers, they do spend a lot of money, but they're not spending billions of dollars on this technology. And not only that, the reach of this technology is greater, right? Let me give you an idea. One data center, you have one gamer that purchased one, graphics card, right? $50, $100, whatever you want to call it. You have a data center that's going to purchase thousands of NVIDIA chips, right? So again, we're talking about scale here. It's a Wealthy Life says no one is getting off NVIDIA. They are the king. Absolutely 100%. Smart. Hey, I don't think I've seen you on the channel, so welcome. Mag1 NVIDIA. Yep, it's just the Mag 1 at this point. Maybe even the Mag 2. Maybe it should just be NVIDIA and Tesla. I don't know. I know a lot of people hate Tesla, so I got to be careful with my choice of words. It's a Wealthy Life says, I purchased NVIDIA for $84 last month. Citizen says, so you are saying you're going all in on NVIDIA. Well, I do have a sizable position in NVIDIA, so I will not lie there. Let's see what else we got. NVIDIA has a moat the size of the Pacific. That is true. AMD is the closest to NVIDIA, and they are far away from. Yeah, AMD, I mean, you can still make a lot of money with AMD. I mean, AMD is still a great company, and it has a great CEO. Lisa Su is a really smart person, and she took the company from like a nobody and made it to what it is today. So again, we talk about like this whole Mag 7, like if you're investing in the Mag 7, there's a lot of, and you can disagree or agree with it, but there's a lot of talk out there that the Mag 7, specifically the hyperscalers, they're going to run into like this muted growth period where they're not going to have those sexy, returns that they did basically from 2008 all the way to today, right? A combination of free, cheap money as well, but they're not going to have that kind of growth anymore. So you have to look at, different areas, different companies to invest into. And AMD, I definitely believe, fit that bill. You had just the FANG stocks, and then NVIDIA came out of nowhere. So now NVIDIA is part of the Mag 7, right? So it's just interesting to keep all of that in mind and in perspective. There is other areas of opportunity, right? I'm not saying that the Mag 7 is getting dethroned. Definitely not. They're going to be here forever. But if you want to make a better return, there's probably other areas you can look into. And for me personally, it's the semiconductor space. I'm very, very bullish on the semiconductor space, and I have a Yield Max ETF with cover call options that takes care of all that for me. So, I'm taking advantage of the semiconductor space and the semiconductor play while also, making some type of income. So all good stuff. All right, guys, going to move on to the next segment. This one's going to be a spicy one. For anyone who's holding Coinbase, all right, the Department of Justice is investigating Coinbase data breach. All right. So Coinbase recently got added to the S&P 500. The whole market went crazy. So shout out to any Coinbase holders or any of the, Coney holders, or I don't even know what other ETFs are out there for coin. I know there's like some leveraged coin stuff from Direction, I think. But anyways, shout out to you guys for investing into Coinbase, whether it's the stock or some cover call ETF variant. U.S. officials are reportedly investigating a data breach that caused many social engineering attacks against Coinbase users and prompted a slew of lawsuits. So this is not good, especially on the news and on the, as soon as they got added to the S&P 500, it's just a bunch of bad news. So the U.S. Department of Justice is reportedly conducting a probe over Coinbase's contracted customer service agents in India who accepted bribes in exchange for allowing criminals to access user data. According to the May 19th Bloomberg report, Department of Justice investigators are looking into the data breach, which Coinbase did disclose as it happened on May 15th. All right. So if a company does not disclose those data breaches, that can lead into some very, very hefty penalties. So, a good thing that Coinbase did do that. Right. Yeah, that's just a really good thing. So basically they went in and these customer service agents, they're basically just abusing their system access and giving away some of that private information to these, scammers. No passwords or private keys or funds were exposed, according to Coinbase. The data breach resulted in social engineering attacks targeted users, including a Sequoia Capital partner. That's a big one. Sequoia Capital is a huge fund out there with losses estimated at up to $400 million. The attackers also attempted to extort $20 million from the Coinbase in exchange for not disclosing the breach, which company refused. All right. So real quick, and I heard this. All right. I just heard this. I don't have any article or anything like this. Basically, the data that these guys got, they can do social engineering attacks on wallets, and how that looks. And it's a very fascinating. I didn't know this was a thing, right? I didn't know that they could do this, but this was very fascinating. So basically you'll have like a wallet, right? Your wallet, your Coinbase wallet. And let's say you send money to it, right? Let's say you send $100 to it. What the hackers will do, now that they have that, they could see that transaction happening. And what they'll have is another wallet that spoofs your wallet address. It looks almost identical. There'll be a couple characters off, right? It'll send you like 10 cents or something, a penny, right? And you'll think that that is it. So then the next time, because a lot of people are lazy and they copy paste stuff. So the next time what will happen is they'll set, from Coinbase, you'll send money to that wallet, and you'll send it to the spoofed one. So people will make money off of your incorrect, copying of that address. So I thought that was just a really interesting way of attacking wallets or social engineering wallets, which was something I never really stopped to think about because I don't know too much about these wallets and crypto space, but a social engineering attack like that is pretty damn smart. So anyways, yeah. This is not good news, but this is not good news for Coinbase. This is just bad PR, unfortunately. And hopefully they get it cleaned up. Hopefully the lawsuits get dropped. I don't think they're gonna get dropped, to be honest. But we'll see. The attempted social engineering attacks have resulted in Coinbase users filing several lawsuits against the exchange, alleging that the company mishandled their personal data. One user, a retired artist named Ed Suman, reported losing $2 million to the scammers. Again, probably sent money to the wrong wallet. Coinbase stock price fluctuated following the news of the breach and unrelated probe from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission over its reported verified user numbers. So they got a couple things going for them. One, the SEC is still looking for their verified user, contact list or whatever that is. They're also dealing with this, attack, and they just got included in the S&P. So A lot of crazy stuff happening out there, guys. Be safe. All right. Be very, very careful if you're a Coinbase user. All right. Our boy from investing.com, Michael Saylor, the MicroStrategy. All right. MSTR acquires more Bitcoin and discloses a class action lawsuit. So we covered this in a couple streams ago. I don't even know how long ago, but we covered this briefly, and I said I would just keep an update on this if there is one. So it looks like there's finally an update. MicroStrategy announces that they do have a class action lawsuit. So this is just breaking news, I suppose. But I mean, for a lot of people, they already knew this. This was covered in depth, throughout YouTube. But during the same week, Strategy invested $764 million to acquire 7,309 Bitcoins at an average purchase price of $103,000 a coin. The company's aggregate Bitcoin holdings now are 576,000 coins. That is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That's more than Satoshi Nakamoto, the group or the person that actually created Bitcoin. That's more than China and the US that actually own or that actually have their Bitcoins, right? Their Bitcoin storages or whatever. So that is just absolutely wild. All right. MSTR is averaging $69,000 per Bitcoin. So on Monday, 16, this is the big news. But again, this could be a nothing burger, as It's a Wealthy Life would state. This could be a nothing burger. Strategy disclosed that a purported class action lawsuit was filed against the company and certain executives. The lawsuit alleges that false or misleading statements were made regarding the anticipated profitability of Strategy's Bitcoin investment strategy and treasury operations, along with non-disclosed risks associated with Bitcoin's volatility. The complaint seeks unspecified damages, and the company has stated its intention to defend vigorously against the claims. All right. So just real fast about MicroStrategy, they still have a couple of things hanging over their head, and I think some people forgot. One, they still have that whole tax problem. I still have not seen anything about that. Coinbase and MSTR sent a letter to the Secretary of Treasury or to the IRS, one of those two, basically asking for an exemption, the same exemption that Berkshire Hathaway has. So nothing came of it. We can only surmise or suspect that it will probably get dropped, later this year. They still have a full year before they have to make any type of payment on this because of the current administration, right? They want to deregulate crypto. So this could be a good thing for MicroStrategy, but it's still in the air. It's still at the top of their heads. Something, again, for anyone who's investing in MSTR, if MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy makes no money right now, they really don't. Their software company is pretty much defunct at this point. It's trash. I mean, they should just gut that business, sell it, and then just hold the cash. But basically, MicroStrategy is just holding the Bitcoin. If they had to pay taxes on that, where's that money going to come from? Right? Where would that money actually have to come from? They also have their preferred shares where they offer an interest, right? They're paying a 10% interest. Where is that money actually coming from? So again, there's all these questions left in the air. MicroStrategy, doesn't make any money. And if they had to pay that tax, they would have to liquidate Bitcoin in order to pay that tax, somewhere to the tune of like $2 or $3 billion. So they still have this all over their head. And if they were to have to do that, it would have had some really cascading effects. So again, left to be seen what will happen. Very interesting, very interesting. All right, I don't care if you're an MSTR holder, an MST holder, an MSTY holder, or any other type of holder of MicroStrategy. Just you want to be aware of the underlying risk, and this is definitely one of those items, right? This is just something you want to keep at the top of your mind. Michael Saylor, he is, he's the oracle of Bitcoin. All right, this guy is the Bitcoin savant, the Bitcoin prodigy, right? He was doing something really crazy, but again, it is untested, unfounded. Nobody knows what the future of Bitcoin is tomorrow. Very, very low risk. It could go to zero, but probably more so. More countries, more companies are adopting, more institutions are adopting Bitcoin. So this could probably be a good, tailwind for MicroStrategy. And again, there's a lot of talk of 200K or 150K Bitcoin by the end of the year. So again, if you're a holder of any of these, stocks, this could be really, really good for you. MicroStrategy is a levered position on Bitcoin by itself, right? So that's really, really interesting. Okay, so moving on. speaking of UNH from Citizen of the Year, United Health closes up 8% with the largest daily gain since 2020. They had some really good news from insiders buying the stock, and I think that really calmed the nerves of a lot of investors. You had a lot of their C-suite executives, one of which or not C-suite, I think it's board members, one of which was a board member with Google as well. So that, again, played into, hey, if these insiders are buying, this is a great stock, right? And it is a blue chip company, all right? This thing has been around for a while. They are the biggest, 1,000 pound gorilla in that sector. So, why not, right? And then not only that, the CEO disclosed he purchased, I think, $25 million worth of the stock. So again, just another sign that, hey, if insiders are buying, then they must know something we don't, okay? And again, the only thing that they have really over their heads right now that really killed the stock was the Medicare fraud thing. And the cost of, the cost of care, or the cost of drugs going down, the cost of, pharmaceuticals going down by executive order. So that also put some pressure on the stock. But again, we'll see what happens. All right. So shout out to any UNH holders. The stock is sitting at, holy crap, $315. That is crazy. Yeah, we had this huge, wow, that's wild. We had this massive dip down to 252. Holy hell. And it climbed up like crazy. Oh my God, that is wild. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that is crazy. So again, shout out to any UNH holders. All right, I think you guys are going to be fine. Don't FOMO yourself. All right. Okay. Some other news. Tidal, our favorite ETF creator, ETF manager out there in the world, in the big wide world, they have a ton of different products out there. One of which is the Defiance. I think it's Defiance 2X short MSTR fund. This is a 1-for-20 reverse split that is happening. Everyone was kind of counting on, the downfall of MicroStrategy, and I guess some type of news had come out and Bitcoin soared up like crazy, and basically anyone holding SMST just got completely cooked. So, unfortunately, that is the way it goes. But anyways, under the terms of the split, every 20 shares of SMST will be consolidated into one share. The adjustment will reduce the number of shares outstanding by 95%. This is an inverse fund. All right, let me just make that point. This is an inverse fund. So you don't really hold this long term. You hold this if you think the underlier, the MSTR is going to trade down. You wouldn't really hold this. So a reverse split is not a big deal, especially for this type of inverse fund, because we know that stocks always go up, right? So stocks always go up. Sometimes they go down. But yeah, this reverse split is not a big deal. Okay, it's not really a big deal. I just saw it and I thought it was kind of funny because I was following SMST for a while. And I saw that it was getting close to that $1 mark. And I was like, oh, this thing is going to have to get reverse split because Bitcoin just keeps going up. And if Bitcoin keeps going up, then that means MicroStrategy is also going up, or strategy. So it was just really, really interesting. I was surprised that this actually made it onto my newsreel. So anyways, guys, let me check the comments. We're going to check the poll, and then we're going to hit into the market news. We're at minute 37. And then I will hop into the portfolio updates. All right. So where did I leave off? Holy smokes, there's tons of comments, man. You guys are awesome. You guys are rocking it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the likes, all right? Appreciate the subscribes for any new ones. Let's see. Man, I don't even know where to start, honestly. Let's start with the poll. Okay, so the poll was, and we still have, some people who could vote right now before I close the poll. But the question was, do you think the Moody's rating was a big deal? All right. 21% of you voted, hell yeah, the U.S. has bad credit. They're probably not going to even be able to apply for a car loan, all right? 21% of you said the U.S. had a credit score. Didn't even know that. Didn't even know that was a thing, all right? And then 58% of you said, nope, overblown nonsense. And I'm going to agree with the 58% that this was overblown nonsense, all right? Again, we covered this at length that, there's already two other credit agencies out there, S&P Global and another one that already gave the United States a downgrade in their credit rating. And they based it off, federal, spending and all that other stuff. So this was nothing. This was like nothing. We already knew this, market already had this priced in, et cetera. So I really don't know where to start with the chat. There's just so much. Let's see. All right, we're going to start here with Smarts. I don't think I've seen you on the channel, so welcome, Smarts. This is what happens when you hire cheap labor from a poor country. keep it in the USA. That's what I'm talking about. The United States is moving a lot of precision, manufacturing back to the US, right? And again, this is going to be kind of, tinfoil hatty, but I really think this is because we're gearing up for, a possible conflict with China, right? We want to corner the market with semiconductors, the best technology, and, basically deny our adversary, our rival, of being able to have that same advantage, right? We want the warfighter advantage. So I think, long term, if we bring manufacturing like cars, people didn't stop to think about this, but having car manufacturers in the United States, if a conflict breaks out, a large scale conflict breaks out, the United States needs to industrialize and create wartime production, right? People don't think about this, but that wartime production is going to rely on companies like Ford, on GM, and all these other companies that build the Jeeps, build the tanks, and everything else. So again, bringing that manufacturing back it should be seen as a good thing, but I think long term, I think that is really the reason. It's because of international relations and possible conflict in the future. Again, China still wants to invade Taiwan and take them out and then make them rejoin China. And we are protecting Taiwan viciously. Nvidia is starting a new office in China, and I think they're starting another office in Taiwan. So they're kind of like, and China loves Nvidia chips. They love Nvidia chips. So I think it's like a imaginary blanket of some sort for Taiwan. So it's like, hey, don't invade us. All right. We have a Taiwan office over there. If you invade Taiwan, you take out that Nvidia office, they're going to be pretty pissed, right? And they're not going to sell anything to China, right? But you also have the United States backing them up with military force. You have Taiwan Semiconductor moving a lot of their production into the United States. Again, let's just protect the most important company in the world, and that is Taiwan Semiconductor. So again, kind of tinfoil hatty, kind of way out there, but a lot of it does look like that is what it is. So let's see what else we got. Shannon says people are too damn smart coming up with these scams. Yeah, referencing the whole Coinbase thing. That is 100% true. Let's see what else we got in here. Man, I had so many comments. Thank you guys. I really appreciate this. Citizen of the Year says Misty is income for the rest of your life. The rest of your life. It's the new way of investing. Oh man, Citizen of the Year is a perma bear on Misty and MSTR. All right, so perma bear. All right, Nunya, imagine if all the funds from Misty went into MSTR buying Bitcoin. Man, that's like 4D Inception right there. Alex says past performance is not indicative of future results. That is 100% true. All right, you always have to remember stuff like that. Yeah, Fitch, Nunya, thank you. Yes, Fitch, S&P Global, and Moody's. These are the three biggest credit ratings, and they basically gave the United States a downgrade. Thank you for finding out that name. That was like itching my brain. Sauce Maker says, best YouTube channel, clear, concise, with no agenda, brother. I appreciate you, man. I really do. All right. Man, you guys have no idea. I really do like the comments. I really do appreciate it. Sauce Maker says, I'm just stacking up my ulti to catch a portfolio, Eugen. I don't know, man. Ulti is the best fun. Maybe with these new changes that YieldMax is implementing, maybe Ulti will actually, reverse course, because they're right at the cusp of getting a reverse split, really right at the cusp. So I think Ulti, we'll probably see better days that NAV actually start to recover. Who knows? I certainly don't, but I think that is definitely we hopefully will see better days for Ulti. All right. Moving on, guys. We're going to hit these segments, the market updates, and then we will hit the portfolio updates, and we'll close out the stream. All right. So S&P 500, we are up only 8 basis points for the day. All right. Only 8 basis points. I'll take it. It's a green day. Thank the almighty volatility gods, all right, of letting us stay in the green. All right. Again, we started off pretty bad because of the whole Moody's thing. Right here, the market just don't care. Market don't care. They do not care about Moody's downgrades, and then just ripped up the highs, and then we had a little bit of a low, right? But ended in the green. NASDAQ, we are up 0.8 basis points. Again, same as the S&P 500. Nothing exciting here, but we still ended in the green, so that's always a good thing. Gold, we use gold as a barometer for understanding investor sentiment. And again, you saw it right here. Everyone was piling in because it looked like the whole Moody's downgrade, right? Investors were like, I'm flocking to, recession, bad credit, crashing economy, tariff, everything going to gold, right? But it looks like people started getting out. They had a huge outflow recently, right? The huge outflow. And so if anyone wants to pick up some gold, maybe gold ETFs, GLD is one of them, or there's also new leveraged gold ETFs coming out. Maybe this is your opportunity to pick up some shares on the cheap. Again, just, look at that. It's just kind of wild. But year to date, gold is still the best performing asset, 21%, up 21%. For a while, they were just ripping every single day to new highs. So shout out to any gold holders. Bitcoin, I don't even know how to read this chart. Bitcoin is just doing what Bitcoin does. And it looks like it's actually, over the last month, it's just been climbing higher and higher. So that's always good. Look, what is this right here, man? How do you even read this? All right. Anyways, guys. Bitcoin looks like it is doing well. All right. I think this was probably the start of the Moody. No, maybe right here. Yeah. I think this was the start of the Moody thing, right? Investors don't care. Whatever, already priced in, but then probably a lot of people wanted to take profits and then it dropped. So again, shout out to anyone that's holding Bitcoin. US 10-year Treasury, we use this to just gauge kind of mortgage rates and the REIT sector. Again, it's still very highly elevated, but again, there's this new narrative coming out that maybe this is just the way it's going to be, and real estate investors just need to accept that, right? Real estate investors, not only them, but small businesses and things like that. So we use the 10-year Treasury as just a barometer for understanding that. And again, over the last 5 days, definitely over the last month, it's just kind of just been staying there. It's just been rising and hovering. Again, all this talk of tariffs, all this talk of recession, and then recently the whole Moody's thing. So this is what is keeping this pretty high. VNQ, we use this as a barometer for understanding the REIT market. We are finally back into $90. Damn, thank God. All right, we haven't been at $90 for a very long time. Let's see, we were up, right before Liberation Day. Yay, wee! And then Liquidation Day, right, as some call it, just had a huge sell-off, but it looks like we are finally back in the 90s range. Thank God. All right, JJ Jenko, welcome, man. I don't think I've seen you on the channel, so welcome. All right, I appreciate that comment. Good stuff, bro. Keep going. I absolutely will. All right, let's move into the portfolio updates, guys, and then we're going to close out the stream. So this is the portfolio update for the day. Doing well. This was at 200. Yeah, see, right after market. And then I think this has to do with PLTW. Of course, it has to do with PLTW because Palantir is getting cooked right now. NVW had a huge spike at the end of the day, so that's always nice. Chippy. The only new buys I have for this portfolio, and I mentioned it in the Discord, I think I bought, I bought 40 shares of NVW, picked up 40 shares there. I believe I picked up 25 shares of Chippy. I'm long semiconductors. I thought it was a good moment to buy since we were in that dip. And I bought, I think 17 shares of XDTE. Honestly, I just wanted to bring this to 1,500 because I hate doing dividend. Whenever they release their announcements, I have to go back. It's like, oh, how many shares do I have? So now I know it's 1,500. So 1,500 here, 700 PLTW, 700 NVW. I'm trying to get this up to 200. For Chippy. I'm really trying to get this up well into the tens of thousands of dollars because I really do like Chippy, and it has been performing exactly as it's supposed to, right? YieldMax on their website says that this is first, the primary objective is to pay out income on a weekly basis. It absolutely has been doing that. And the secondary option is capital appreciation, right? Now, with these types of funds, the capital appreciation is not going to be as much, which is okay. I don't need it to grow, extravagantly. I just need it to pay out, but I need moderate, low to moderate NAV growth. That's what I care about. That's what, for me, that's what made me want to invest in this. There is no other product that I have found that's available on the market that is like this. So shout out to YieldMax for doing a good job on this one. I do want to cover this in another video, but yes, I will end that little portion right there. So this is pretty much a portfolio. You guys know I use an excessive amount of margin because I'm a degenerate. So I have about $99,000 worth of margin. I have a buffer of $42,000. So I'd have to see a portfolio decline of $42,000 before I start sweating bullets and become really worried about, a margin call of some sort. Now I do have just a little picture just to add, just a little humor to this. These are the margin Marines. All right. These are the guys keeping me safe with their buffer shields. So, you know, I feel okay. I'm able to sleep well at night, knowing that this Chad of a margin Marine is protecting the portfolio, right? The portfolio, the fortress portfolio. So just a little humor. I was playing around with ChatGPT and I thought it was kind of cool. All right, guys, let's move into the M1 finance portfolio and then we'll head back into the comment land and we'll close out the stream. So let me see. I just have to log into this thing. Smart says 700 shares of PLTW, you are a brave man. You know, it's not that different than owning the underlier, in all honesty. I mean, if you like Palantir, if you're a big fan of Palantir and you're bullish on the stock, why not own the stock and make a little bit of income on the side, right? Yeah, it's 1.2x levered. That to me is not that scary. You know, MST, like that is scary to me. Like 1.5 to 2x leverage, hell, that is way more scarier to me. So holding PLTW is pales by comparison. So, you know, I thought these weekly pays were kind of degenerative, but no, that MST is like by far the biggest degen move you can make. So shout out to anyone that's holding that. I know there's a member in the community. He mentioned he has, I think 4,000 or 8,000 shares, something ridiculous. All right. So the other portfolio I have is on M1 Finance. This one has, you know, my REITs. It also has another core position or another anchor in there, and that is the technology ETF VGT from Vanguard. I have a whole video on why I invested into this. You guys can check it out. I put $170,000 into this thing, and then it just started dropping like crazy. So REITs, nice recovery. Again, we're looking good. BDCs, man, they do their thing. And a crypto ETF for Bitcoin, I invest into the, I think it's ProShares or iShares? iShares, the iShares Bitcoin Trust, right? ETF IBIT. I'm not a fan of doing the whole, you know, cold storage wallet, hot storage wallet, all that crap. I don't know. It's too much for me. I'm trying to be as passive as possible. You know, I got other important things to do. I don't want to be fiddling with a damn wallet, you know, cold storage, hot storage, all these keys, all these passwords. I'm good on that. But yeah, that is the portfolio update, guys. That's pretty much it. Let me head back into comment land and see if I can find anything else, and then we'll close out the stream. Let's see. Let's see. More stuff about Misty and Bitcoin. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Here's one. So Senpai says my UNH calls are gonna print money. All right, I'm glad to hear that you got those lottery tickets because those are big ones, right? The big lottery tickets. Excellent. Smart says yes, I do. The next Bitcoin halving is in 2028, 2026, maybe the winter, and that's when I will buy. Interesting. It's a Wealthy Life says some people don't have the longer term diamond hands. Good old diamond hands. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for this stream. I don't have anything else to talk about. I went through all the portfolio stuff, went through all the latest news. So I think we're going to go ahead and end the stream. You guys have a wonderful evening. A great rest of your day wherever you are in the world. I need to get ready for the gym here, and I will be, you know, streaming hopefully tomorrow if some more spicy news comes out and keeping you guys all up to date. I got some ideas for videos that we'll be publishing here soon. I just have to film all the stuff and get it all correct. So expect a couple new videos to drop. So appreciate you guys joining the stream, sitting with me, chopping it up, and just going through the news. All right, let's all make some money tomorrow. And with that being said, you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining, and thank you for all your support. I will see you in the next stream. Take care, guys.